The Transit Custom isn't Ford's largest Transit model line, but it's an impressively versatile medium-sized LCV segment player that's been vastly improved in this revised form. Transit models have ruled the British large LCV market for around half a century, and products like this one are the reason why.
The Transit Custom is arguably the most important version of Britain's most important light commercial vehicle model line. It's Ford's one-ton van, competing in the key segment for mid-sized models, and in early 2018 it was improved significantly. The result is the vehicle we're going to look at here. Custom used to be merely a Transit trim level, but in 2012 Ford decided it should designate their newly created medium-sized Transit model line. Now, the brand had never previously offered such a thing, expecting instead that one single large design could meet the needs of every business, providing it was available in enough shapes and sizes. In creating the Transit Custom and the separate larger full-size model that sold alongside it, known merely as the Transit, Ford finally changed its approach. They recognised what its rivals had in fact known for decades, that the market segments for medium-sized and large LCVs are very different, each requiring a unique approach. Now here, that brought us a very competitive product indeed, something reflected by the fact that in its first 4 years on sale, over 206,000 Transit Custom models were sold, contributing to buoyant sales across a Transit lineup that by 2018 was in its 53rd year of LCV market leadership. By this point though, the medium-sized LCV segment competition had raised its game, with all new or substantially revised versions of every major rival threatening the Blue Oval brand's UK commercial sector dominance. Hence the need for the revised Transit Custom model range that we're going to look at in this film. Now, if you know this product, you might notice the sharper styling, but what's more important is what lies beneath the bonnet. An all-new range of 2-litre EcoBlue diesel engines, which Ford says could save the average Transit Custom operator over £1,250 a year. Now, for those wanting even more efficiency, a frugally orientated Econetic version provides that, plus plug-in petrol-electric hybrid tech has been developed too. In addition, big advances have been made in camera-driven safety and media connectivity, and there's an even wider range of CV conversions for those who need them, with well over 300 Transit Custom derivatives on offer. That's not bad when you remember that there were just 75 variants available when the original model Transit was first launched back in 1965. As a result, whether today the spacious van you have in mind needs to carry packages or people, this Ford remains an option you simply can't ignore. Throughout the rest of this film, we'll talk about the various design and technological changes made to this improved Transit Custom, but there's no getting away from the fact that by far the most important update made to this product in recent times lies with the installation of a whole fresh range of diesel engines, and not before time. The earlier version of this van carried forward an old 2.2-litre TDCI Duratorque diesel from the previous generation Transit model line that was originally developed in conjunction with Peugeot Citroen. That's now been replaced by a range of 2-litre EcoBlue diesel units, which, as well as being much more efficient, offer 20% more pulling power through the gears. Now, if you're familiar with previous Transit Custom models, you should notice that pretty quickly out on the road. The outputs on offer are much the same as with the old TDCI lineup, the range kicking off with the 105 PS unit that you'll need if you want the super frugal Econetic version. Most buyers though will choose either the 130 PS variant that we're trying here, or if they'll be hauling particularly heavy loads, the top 170 PS unit. In both cases there's the option of the more responsive select shift 6-speed automatic gearbox that Ford now offers as an option. We think this mid-range 130 PS diesel unit delivers everything everything that most operators will ever need, with decent low-down grunt ensuring that you're not constantly having to flick around the 6-speed manual gearbox to row the van along. The maximum torque of 385 Newton meters being developed at 3,500 RPM. That facilitates the useful 2.5-ton brake towing capacity too. Refinement, that's certainly not class leading, but the noise levels aren't intrusive, and at highway speeds you don't get as much wind buffeting around the mirrors as is generated with some rivals. Now, it's been a long time since Ford offered a petrol-powered Transit of this size in our market, but if you choose to talk to your dealer about the plug-in hybrid model that the brand's been developing, then that's just what you'll get. This variant uses the company's 1-litre 3-cylinder EcoBoost petrol power plant that we're used to seeing in the company's smaller models, and mates it to a 50-kilowatt electric motor powered by a lithium-ion battery that operators will be able to charge for limited electrified mobility. Expect take-up on this derivative, though, to be pretty limited until more sophisticated battery technology arrives to increase the operating range and a wider charging infrastructure appears throughout the country. What else? Well, we ought to talk about driving dynamics, which have been integral to transit motoring ever since the late 90s, when Ford went as far as enlisting experts like former Formula One world champion Jackie Stewart to get those right. The original version of this Transit Custom was more rewarding to drive than its competitors, and as you'd expect, this revised model continues that trend, its steering feel being especially impressive. Like any commercial vehicle, it handles better fully loaded, but even in the unladen state that we've got here, cornering response is impressive and body roll is well controlled. The cornering response thing is perhaps the easiest to explain. It's delivered courtesy of a torque vectoring control system that's perfected on Ford's road cars. Through the corners, this constantly shifts traction to the wheels that can best use it and fires you seamlessly from bend to bend in a way that you just don't expect in a van. Body roll is kept well in check too, and that's thanks to a particularly stiff structure. As is usual in this class, there are no rear-driven or four-wheel drive options. The sprightly handling and performance makes it important that the brakes are up to the job, as is the case here with disc brakes all round. Now, you'll also want this vehicle to be manoeuvrable, hence a decently tight turning circle which varies between 11.6 metres curb to curb and 12.2 metres wall to wall. And should you be at an uphill junction, standard hill launch assist will help you to get away smoothly. Now, Ford hasn't got around to offering any autonomous driving technology on this model yet, but there's now plenty of camera and radar activated safety stuff, including the option of the brand's collision mitigation with pedestrian detection autonomous braking system. Specified correctly, your Transit Custom can now stop you from dangerously pulling out to overtake in front of another vehicle, alert you to fast moving traffic when you're reversing out of a space, and stop you from veering out of your lane on the highway. Plus, it can detect and compensate for trailer sway and violent side crosswinds. For the time being then, it's as dynamically advanced as most operators will ever need it to be. A van needs to look smart, modern and professional. This one certainly does, with signature kinetic design features that bring a purposeful stance and a bold rising shoulder line, clearly marking out this Transit Custom as a cargo carrier very much of its time. Over 2,200 parts have been changed in creating this revised version, so what we're looking at here is a bit more than just a facelift. Now, quite a few of them feature here at the front, where the bonnet, the wings and this lower bumper area are all new. So these slimmer, more dynamic LED framed headlamps, which can now include HID xenon technology if you want it, and these flank a bolder, high-mounted 3-bar Transit grille. Not all the design advances made are welcome, in our opinion. Ford has, for some reason, abandoned the previous laudable approach to security, which meant you needed the ignition key to unlock the bonnet, nor do you these days get the little steps that on the older generation Transit models enabled owners to easily climb up and clean the screen. Let's move to the side, where that upward sweeping mid-level crease we mentioned gives the profile a bit of purpose, as do the restyled wheel designs. We have the 16-inch alloy rims here. This track that the side-loading door slides down has been redesigned too. Otherwise, it's very much as you were, with a wide rubbing strip retained at low level to protect the flanks from dents and scrapes. There is the usual range of body style options, which means that if this 4.97 metre L1 variant isn't long enough, your dealer will direct you to the alternative 5.34 metre L2 body shape, and plenty of buyers will want to progress from the standard H1 roof height we have here to the alternative H2 option. Move to the back, and as you'd expect, the vertically stacked tail lights flank the usual hinged rear doors, with glazing and a tailgate available as options. Now inside, the cabin design is very different from what went before. The previous rather dated herringbone style layout for stereo and phone functions has been replaced by a more modern upper centre console design that on upper spec models incorporates the Sync 3 infotainment screen that we're now used to seeing in the latest Ford passenger cars. Materials quality is better too, with higher quality plastics and smart touches like this silver framing around the air vents. Despite all that though, the cabin still doesn't quite have the same hewn from granite feel that you'd find in a rival Mercedes Vito or Volkswagen Transporter, but the overall level of fit and finish is certainly a big step forward in terms of what you'd expect from a Transit. Staying with the changes, let's tell you that the seats are a big improvement, featuring 8-way adjustability and revised foam padding for extra support. As usual with the van in this class, you're positioned high and commandingly, and it's certainly easy to get comfortable thanks to seat height adjustment and plenty of rearward travel for the driver's chair. The angle of the seat cushion can be altered too, plus there's plenty of movement on the redesigned rake and reach adjustable 3-spoke steering wheel too. Through this you view a smarter, clearer instrument cluster with 2 main dials separated by a useful trip computer display. If you have been able to stretch to a variant like this one, fitted with the Sync 3 infotainment touchscreen setting we mentioned earlier, then much more operational information will be available to you via this 8-inch monitor that sprouts in freestanding form from the top of the centre console. It allows for easy app integration and functionality that enables you to duplicate the operation of your smartphone onto the central fascia screen via either Apple CarPlay or the MirrorLink Android Auto system. Now, if you're not familiar with the Ford Sync package, it doesn't take long to adjust to it, with the central dash monitor divided into sectors that allow you to activate audio, phone and, where fitted, the sat-nav functions via touchscreen icons. Heating and ventilation is covered off by separate switchgear further down the centre stack. That's just as well, because the display icons on the monitor can be a bit fiddly to use. That's despite the inclusion of smartphone-style pinch and swipe functionality. Instead of stabbing away at the screen graphics, it's better to try to master the system's impressive voice-activated functionality, which allows you to issue simple one-shot commands. So simply by saying phrases like, "I need a coffee," "I need petrol," or "I need to park," you can easily locate nearby cafes, petrol stations or car parks, and find destinations like train stations, airports and hotels. Enough on connectivity, what about space and practicality? Panel vans in this class pretty much always give you 3 seats across the front, unless you prefer to stick to a pair of chairs. What you don't always get though is the useful option, which is fitted to most Transit custom models, of being able to fold down this middle seat backrest to create an impromptu desk, which is big enough for a laptop or a clipboard, with 2 cup holders, a pen tray and an elasticated band that'll keep your paperwork in place. Now, we also like the way that folding the base cushions of both the passenger seats forward opens up a roomy, concealed 93-litre storage area for hiding away valuable objects like tools. Smaller things can be stored in the lockable glove box, in which you can hang A4 folders. Yes, interior storage. There's a lot of that in a Transit Custom, now more than ever. Ford still doesn't provide the stowage space above the driver's head in the cab of high roof versions. You will get that in some rivals, although there is this small central cubby. The brand now claims this van to be class leading in terms of cab storage though, with 25 litres of stowage space in the instrument panel alone. The key additions in this regard relate to the 3 large open bins that have been added on the top of the dashboard. There's a a 3.8 litre one behind the instrument binnacle and a 4.8 litre space above the upper glove box. In between these, you get a further 4.9 litres of dash-top space behind the central infotainment screen here. That's made up of this near cubby and a further narrower one. It's just a pity that none of the various compartments provided can be lidded. What else? Well, on the manual models, you now get a useful fold-out cup holder just below the gear lever. As before, single cup holders feature at either end of the dashboard, as do 2-litre bottle holders. Each of the cab doors gets 3 stowage bins. The middle one's able to hold a flask of tea or a 2-litre bottle. Plus, USB and 12-volt power sockets feature not only next to the upper right-hand stowage bin, but also alongside the gear stick for easy charging. You get a couple of coat hooks between the seats too to stop your jacket getting creased. There are several hundred Transit Customs derivatives to choose from, with most being centred around the panel van body shape we have here. Adding people to the packaging mix means you might want to look at the double cabin van body shape with its extra rearward seats in front of the load bay, or if you want to give the whole space over to the carriage of people, then there's the Combi minibus or the more luxurious Torneo large MPV model, both of which can seat either 8 or 9. The variance depends on whether you specify separate chairs at the front or you stick with the more usual 3-person layout. Here, though, our main focus is on the Transit Custom panel vans. Now, although it is possible, excluding the dreaded VAT, to get yourself into a short wheelbase version of one of these for around £22,000, most models will be sold in the £23,000 to £28,000 bracket, which is common to the medium-range LCV class. Now, here we've got a straightforward L1H1 model, but that's just the starting point. In rough terms, you need to be looking at adding around £2,000 to the cost of any short wheelbase variant if you want to upgrade it to a beefier L2 long wheelbase spec. And you can also talk to your dealer about the higher roof H2 body style, which was also developed for this van, which will cost only £600 more. If your business needs something more specific, then Ford has a range of approved qualified vehicle modifiers, and there were 15 of those at the time of the launch of this revised Transit Custom lineup. Now, these companies can convert this LCV into almost anything you want. For example, they can make it wheelchair accessible, or they can give it a refrigerated body. Right, what about segment rivals for this panel van model? Well, they're many and varied, of course. Short and long wheelbase Transit Custom models compete primarily with 4 main designs in the medium-sized van segment. There are 2 quite expensive quality options, the Volkswagen Transporter and the Mercedes Vito, and 2 mainstream designs that price-wise represent closer competition to what Ford's offering here. One is badged as either the Vauxhall Vivaro, the Renault Trafic, the Nissan NV300 or the Fiat Talento, and the other is marketed as either the Peugeot Expert, the Citroen Dispatch or the Toyota Pro-Ace. Now, it's likely that your Ford dealer will be able to match or beat pricing on any of the models I just mentioned. If you then take into account this Transit Custom's class-leading handling and a dealer network unequalled in size across the UK, you might well feel that this Ford could be your ideal choice. Now, if that's the case, there'll be quite a few decisions to make before placing your order. So let's try to talk you through a few of them. Now, we've already talked about the L1 and L2 body lengths and the H1 and H2 roof heights. What's equally important is the gross vehicle weight that you're going to need in your chosen Transit Custom model. So let's assume that you want a panel van like this one. The entry-level version has a gross vehicle weight of 2,600 kilos, so it's badged 260. The next option is 2,800 kilos, and that's badged 280. And then so on in the same way through the 300 series models. That's what we've got here, the 320 and the 340 derivatives. Bear in mind that the longer L2 body shape is only available with the 3 weightiest options. What about engine and powertrain choices? Well, Transit Customs only drive through the front wheels, so that's straightforward. And virtually all of them use basically the same 4-cylinder, 2-litre EcoBlue diesel engine, although you can have that in a choice of power outputs, 105, 130 and 170 PS. Now, if you're a panel van customer who's happy with the least powerful 105 PS unit, base trim and a 3,000 kilo gross vehicle weight, then you'll be able to order a more frugally orientated EcoBlue kinetic model. Those who prefer the 130 and 170 PS Transit Custom power plant options get the chance to specify Ford's 6-speed select shift automatic gearbox for an extra £1,200. Now, the only other engine option developed for this model is the plug-in petrol-electric hybrid unit that you can ask your dealer about. Now, that mates a 1-litre EcoBoost 3-cylinder petrol engine with a 50 kilowatt electric motor and a rechargeable lithium-ion battery pack. By now, you should be narrowing your target model down, and you can pinpoint it even further by deciding on a trim level to suit your budget. Now, there are 4 of these: base, trend, limited, which is the one we have here, and sport. Even the base variants come, with the basics, which when it comes to this Ford means that you get features like tinted glass, electric front windows, a trip computer, a full-size spare wheel, a sliding side door, a full-height bulkhead, and a courtesy headlamp delay, which allows you to get to your front door or your office entrance at night before the lights turn off. Plus, there's a waterproof remote key fob, which activates a remote central locking system, which automatically locks the doors above 5 miles an hour. You get a radio too, although since it only accesses AM and FM bands, we could perhaps in modern terms refer to that as a wireless. Most will stretch at least up to a trend-trimmed Transit Custom. These variants are recognisable over the base versions by their body-coloured front bumpers and mirror housings, plus their smarter wheel trims and projector-style halogen headlamps with LED daytime running lights. There's also power-folding heated door mirrors, a quick clear heated windscreen, all-round parking sensors, and auto headlamps and wipers. Inside, you also get a leather-trimmed steering wheel, cruise control with an adjustable speed limiter, map reading lights and driver's seat lumbar adjustment. There's an easy clean floor for the cargo area too. Plus, with Trend Spec, you are at least to some extent brought into the 21st century in terms of entertainment, and that's thanks to the provision of a central 4.2-inch screen via which you can access DAB radio, Bluetooth and Ford's Sync with emergency assistance setup, which will summon accident help if the airbags go off in a crash. It's probably only owner drivers who will go beyond this level in the range, and for those people, Ford's provided a couple of really plush spec levels, and we've got the limited trim here, and that's recognisable by 16-inch alloy wheels and the further use of body colour on the side mouldings, the door handles and the rear bumper. Now, this is a spec level that you'll need for the standard provision of the Sync 3 infotainment system, and that's something we've been talking about earlier, with its high-tech 8-inch centre colour touchscreen and its Apple CarPlay, Android Auto smartphone mirroring capability. Now, there's also air conditioning, heat for the front seats, a Thatcham Category 1 alarm and a load area protection kit with a full height rear trimming board and 8 tie-down hooks. Now, beyond limited spec lies only the sport fan, which really is one for private owners only. The Transit Custom is one of the few LCVs we can think of that can almost carry off a set of two-tone racing stripes. And with sport van spec, you get those as part of a body styling kit, also featuring front, rear and side skirts, plus wheel arch extensions. Other inclusions run to partial leather seat trim, a rear view camera with trailer hitch assist, and in addition, you'll get 17 or 18-inch alloy wheels with locking nuts. The size variance depends on the gross vehicle weight you've chosen. On to options, and as with any van, there are plenty depending on the uses you have in mind. Let's cover off the practical stuff. You're probably going to want the My Key option that allows you to program a second key for an additional driver in a way that restricts certain vehicle features. On base and trend spec models, you'll also probably want to pay extra for an alarm too. What else? Well, you might well want an extra side loading door to add to the one fitted as standard. Features like a roof rack, a rear access ladder, a tow bar, rear mud flaps and parking sensors will be needed by some operators. And if you'll be delivering in bumpy areas like building sites, you might want to add in the engine underbody protection pack. If your deliveries must make it to country areas throughout the winter, you might also want to specify the Goodyear all-weather tyres. Now, for the load bay, if budget is restricted due to base or trend spec models, you'll probably want to pay extra for the load area protection kit with its full height rear trimming board and 8 tie-down hooks. We'd want to go further though and get ourselves full ply lining load area protection. Here we've been trying the useful LED load space lighting, and you might also want to look at a cargo net kit and an interior roof rack. The 230 volt, 150 watt power converter we've got on this particular model might be useful too. You can also specify a 240 amp heavy duty alternator and a rear 12 volt aux power socket. There are various interior racking options too, and a load retention system that includes fixing rails and sliding blocks with 10 lashing hooks. If you don't have the H2 high roof option, you can also specify a liftgate tailgate instead of the usual twin rear doors. Either way, your rear door or doors can be glazed, and necessary, the glass can be protected by a grille. Now, on to driving features. A bit annoyingly in this day and age, Ford insists on charging £240 extra for an engine start-stop system. It'll probably pay for itself with fuel savings over time, though. Other driver-orientated extras you might want to look at include the addition of HID xenon headlamps with a static cornering feature which turns the beams with the bends. Some operators will need a digital tachograph and fixed engine governors. Those are available to fix maximum speed to either 56, 62 or 70 miles an hour. And there is an optional acceleration control feature too that restricts throttle application and which may also play a part in keeping running costs in check, although this will be annoying for company drivers. Now, you might also want to look at one of the optional visibility packs, which on Trend and the limited variants include power folding mirrors, lane keeping alert and a rear view camera. Latter feature is also available as a standalone option. For the cabin, there are various front seat packs. You might want 2 single seats rather than the 3-person format, for example. Plus, you can, of course, specify rubber floor mats and driver's side window wind deflectors. You might also want to look at upgrading your Transit Customs level of infotainment. The Sync 3 8-inch centre dash screen that we've been trying on this limited variant here can be added at extra cost on the base and Trend variants. That's if you tick the box for the ICE Pack 21 option. And across the range, you can have this set up complete with navigation if you go instead for the ICE Pack 24 option. You can opt for a configurable central locking system too, which allows you to choose which doors are unlocked in which order. If you want to smarten your Transit Custom up a bit, there's a partial dress-up kit available, which has a silver front skid plate and unpainted grey wheel arch covers. Side running boards are available too, and on the volume Trend models, you can add in these 16-inch alloy wheels if you want them. A set of 17-inch alloys can also be ordered. There's a range of exterior metallic paint colours. We've got chrome blue here, which come included in the price unless you have a base trimmed model, or there is a special shadow black mica finish. If you pay the extra for special vehicle option paint though, you'll be able to select from a far wider range of shades, and there'll almost certainly be one to match your company's colour scheme. Finally, let's cover safety. Now, we're always disappointed on vans to find just a single driver's airbag fitted as standard. That is again the case here, unless you stretch to limited or sports spec, in which case there is a passenger bag fitted too. That is optional further down the range. Provided you avoid entry-level base trim, you will at least get as standard the Sync with emergency assistance system we mentioned earlier. Now, that can alert the rescue services if you're in a crash in which the airbags have gone off. As usual, there is ABS braking with electronic brake force distribution, which makes that more effective, and emergency brake assist, which will help in panic stops, and those are advertised to following motorists by automatically activated hazard warning flashes. Other standard electronic assistance features include ESP stability control, hill start assist, rollover mitigation and traction control. A side wind stabilisation system has been added to this improved model too, and tyre pressure monitoring is optional on most models. Onto safety options. You'll get the latest sophisticated camera and radar driven stuff added to this improved Transit Custom model range if you pay the extra £600 that Ford wants for the adaptive cruise control pack, as well as cruise control, which automatically adapts itself on the highway to the speeds of other drivers. And this also includes speed sign recognition, lane departure warning, auto high beam assist, a driver impairment monitor which monitors your reactions for drowsiness, and most importantly, autonomous braking. Now, this is Ford's collision mitigation with pedestrian detection setup. Now, that autonomous braking setup is worth saying a bit more about. As usual with such systems, this searches for potential accident hazards, scanning the road ahead as you drive. If one's detected, then you'll be warned. If you don't respond or perhaps you aren't able to, then the brakes will automatically be applied to decrease the severity of any resulting accident. Now, it even works with pedestrians and at night. If someone should stray into your Transit Customs path after dark, collision mitigation will kick in just the same way as if you were inadvertently heading towards a parked object during the daytime. So, could be a lifesaver. If you opt for the adaptive cruise control pack, then you'll also have the option of paying a bit extra for what Ford calls intelligent speed assistance. Now, this is basically a speed limiter which reads road signs and automatically adapts your speed to them. So, in theory, it would be impossible to ever get a speeding ticket ever again, which is a very nice thought. The other key high-tech safety option that you can have on this LCV gives you blind spot information, and that's there to stop you from dangerously pulling out to overtake in front of another vehicle, and cross traffic alert, and that warns you of oncoming traffic when you're reversing out of a space. If your notebook's at the ready, in this section we're going to give you the loading and practicality stats that you'll want to consider in choosing your ideal Transit Custom model and in comparing it to obvious rivals. So, using this straightforward L1H1 standard wheelbase low roof variant as an example, let's start as usual at the business end here at the rear. Now, like their competitors, Transit Custom models come with these conventionally hinged side opening twin rear doors that open to 90 degrees and can then swing through to 180 degrees. Unfortunately though, you can't specify them to swing out beyond that and attach onto the sides of the vehicle in the way that is possible with some competitors. The loading height is usefully low though. Depending on the variant you choose, it's between 511 and 564 millimetres from the ground. Now, let's take a look inside. Certainly the bulky stuff should go in okay, with even this L1 low roof version offering a rear door aperture 1400 mils wide and 1340 mils high, though of course that'll be higher if you've specified the high roof option. The roof height, along with your selection between short and long wheelbases, will also of course determine your load space volume. Even at the bottom of the range, L1H1 short wheelbase low roof customers get a load area length of 2,554 mils, a load area height of 1,406 mils, and a class-leading width between the wheel arches of 1,351 mils, all of which equates to a very decent 6 cubic metres of capacity, or 7.2 cubic metres if you go for the H2 high roof body shape. Whatever roof height you choose, that'll be enough to enable the transport of up to 3 Euro pallets with a 1 metre high load, or for you to carry 8 foot by 4 foot building boards, that's 2,440 mils by 1,220 mils, either vertically at the edge of the bulkhead or flat on the floor. Now, we should also point out that you can increase your load area length by 517 mils in the L1 or L2 variants by making use of this useful flap in the bulkhead, which allows you to push really lengthy items into the cab. In this L1 variant, that enables a total interior load length of as much as 3,037 mils. So in short, you may not need the long wheelbase L2 version, but if you do, then you'll find that the extra 366 millimetres of body length is enough to up the load space volume to 6.8 cubic metres or 8.3 cubic metres if you go for the H2 high roof body shape. You'll also want to know about the payloads that you'll be able to carry. Now, this L1 body shape can carry a maximum gross payload of up to 1,530 kilos with this standard H1 roof. With the higher H2 roof height selected, that falls a little to 1,481 kilos. Go for the longer L2 body shape and you'll be able to carry a maximum gross payload of up to 1,447 kilos with a standard H1 roof. With the higher H2 roof height selected, that falls to 1,395 kilos. Your Transit Customs potential payload capacity will obviously be heavily influenced by the gross vehicle weight you choose at point of purchase. For this panel van, the entry-level version has a gross vehicle weight of 2,600 kilos, so is badge 260. The next option is 2,800, badge 280, and then so on in the same way through the 300 series models. That's what we got here, the 320 and the 340 variants. Now, do bear in mind that the longer L2 body shape is only available with the 3 weightiest options. For completion here, let's also mention that across the range there's a useful 2.5 tonne towing capacity should you need that. Whatever Transit Custom model you select, it'll get a sliding side door with enough height and width to admit a fully loaded Euro pallet. The side door aperture is 1,384 mils high and low roof form and 1,030 mils wide. Of course, on the double cabin van, passenger carrying van variants, the side door is reserved for the use of rear seat occupants, and the need for their compartment means a necessarily restricted luggage bay at the back. In short wheelbase L1 models, it's down to 3.5 cubic metres with a load space length of 1,577 mils. So it's probably better in that case to go for a long wheelbase L2 version where the packaging compromise is less acute. Those variants deliver a 4.3 cubic metre load volume and a load space length of 1,944 mils, and that's enough for a couple of Euro pallets. Now, once you've selected your Transit custom panel variant of choice and you've got your cargo in, an easy job to accomplish at night if you've specified these optional super bright LED interior cargo bay lights, you'll find that most models provide this fitted easy clean vinyl covered floor, although that won't stop you scratching the wheel arches or the interior sides of the vehicle. For that, there's really no substitute for the full ply lining kit that you can arrange through your dealer. Of course, damage is less likely if you probably tie your load down, something possible in this Transit Custom with the aid of no fewer than 8 different lashing points. If you do forget to use those and everything slides forward, then you'll be glad of the full height steel bulkhead that we mentioned earlier. Long items can also be carried on the roof, and here there's another example of Ford design cleverness, the optional deployable integrated roof rack system, and that's able to carry loads of up to 130 kilos. Seamlessly integrated into the roof panels, you need to activate it only when you need it, so when it's not in use, the crossbars can be quickly folded down, reducing drag and fuel consumption, as well as on most variants, keeping the overall vehicle height to under a couple of metres for easy car park entry. Very neat. As for operating issues, well, residual values will be key. Expect a volume variant to retain about 32% of its original value after the usual industry standard 3-year, 60,000 mile operating period. There is the usual 3-year, 100,000 mile warranty, a 1-year roadside assistance warranty, and a 12-year anti-corrosion package. Plus, service intervals on the diesel models are set at a lengthy 36,000 miles or every 2 years, which is class leading. An interim check is also needed at 18,000 miles. And Ford has the largest dealer network of any brand in the UK, with 115 dedicated transit centres right across the country. This custom model certainly offers an easy engine bay to work in, with the dipstick and the screen wash reservoir easy to access. We especially like the fact that the washer fluid bottle has a sensor so that the driver is alerted when it needs to be topped up. Thinking to keep hassle and maintenance costs down is in fact everywhere around this vehicle. That's why the bumpers down here, for example, have been designed in 3 pieces so that they're easier and more cost effective to replace. Now, we also like the capless Ford Easy Fuel diesel nozzle design, which makes it almost impossible to put the wrong fuel in your vehicle. As for fuel and CO2 running costs, these have been improved substantially over the previous generation model. And that's thanks to the replacement of the previous 2.2 litre TDCi diesel engine with Ford's latest range of 2 litre EcoBlue diesel units. Now, these feature an advanced combustion process with common rail injectors and turbocharging technology that's taken from Ford's well-regarded EcoBoost petrol engine range. Now, the result is across-the-board fuel savings of up to 13%, which Ford reckons could save a typical Transit Custom operator up to around £1,250 a year. Now, as for the official combined cycle fuel and CO2 stats, well, for the standard 105 PS diesel model, depending on variant, you're looking at between 41.5 and 46.3 mpg and between 157 and 175 grams per kilometre of CO2. For the 130 PS or 170 PS versions, the consumption variance is between 40.9 and 44.1 mpg, and you're looking at between 165 and 180 grams per kilometre of CO2. You can add a fraction to those figures if you choose the 130 PS model with the optional auto gearbox, and you might be able to improve on those readings a bit if you equip your chosen Transit Custom with Ford's engine start-stop system, which unfortunately costs extra. Those returns do represent big improvements over what was possible from the older TDCi 2.2 litre diesel units, and they should give a long operating range from the 80 litre fuel tank. Bear in mind though that the gains made are slightly offset by the need to fill this van's 21 litre AdBlue tank every 6,000 miles with special urea-based fluid, and that's in order to keep the selective catalytic reduction exhaust after treatment setup functioning. Some business operators may want to try to further improve things by adding in speed restrictors or ticking the box for a really neat option called acceleration control. Now this controls the rate of acceleration of your vehicle depending on whether it's unladen or part laden, and that can in turn lower your fuel consumption by up to 15%, as well as reducing wear and tear on the engine. To get even stronger standards of running cost efficiency, there are two further options. One is fairly conventional. As with the previous model lineup, Ford is offering in this one a frugally focused e-kinetic derivative based around the 105 PS 2-litre EcoBlue diesel. Here, as you'd expect, the auto start-stop system is standard, along with aerodynamic wheel trims, longer gearing, revised engine calibration and low rolling resistance tyres. As a result of all this, emissions improved to 148 grams per kilometre of CO2. But you'll still be chugging out diesel into the atmosphere. Now, perhaps your business wants to make a greener statement to its customers than that. If so, you might be interested in the petrol-electric plug-in hybrid variant that you can ask your Ford dealer about. Now, this mates a 1-litre EcoBoost 3-cylinder petrol engine to a 50-kilowatt electric motor and a lithium-ion battery, and it gives a limited electrified driving range when it's fully charged up. Across the rest of Europe, Transit models enjoy none of the market dominance that they have in the UK. But on the evidence of this rejuvenated custom model, you really have to wonder whether continental buyers are missing a trick. It may be the most sophisticated Transit we've yet seen, although businesses will probably still buy it for the same reasons they always have. This custom model remains such a simple, straightforward, one-stop choice, and it'll help that it satisfies a wider variety of commercial needs than any other Transit derivative. We didn't believe that there was very much wrong with the original version of this van, and we think there's even less wrong with this one. Now, the key change has been the installation of Ford's much more efficient EcoBlue engine lineup at a stroke, dealing with the one Achilles heel of the original custom, running costs that were just a little off the pace. Now, with that sorted, it's easier to be swayed by this LCV's many selling points: boxy practicality, class-leading handling, thoughtful equipment features, and the UK's largest dealer network. Now, true, some rivals offer classier cabs, but they cost a lot more. And in summary, well, once upon a time, Ford's dominance in the British LCV sector was founded on little more than the fact that UK buyers tended to replace their Transits with another because that was what they'd always done. In some cases, this kind of mindset may continue, but what's different today is the quality of the product these people are buying into. It is, once again, number one for a reason.